Welcome to Daggers and Shadow Daddies.
We're your hosts, Ryan and Adriana.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
Quick disclaimer, this is a reread for Fourth Wing and Iron Flame as we prepare for the book Onyx Storm. Spoilers ahead.
It was a sexy fight. He took 24 hours, gave the other 24 to the guy who he beat up.
Yeah.
And then he kissed him on the cheek and then left.
He's like, have a good weekend. Bye. She reminisces on how much she missed him and wants him. She's having this internal battle of what she feels and wants and the desire to have his body, but also wanting the truth and how she's going to get these things. And therefore, she must not have his body because she wants the truth.
She's also like, why can't we have emotionless sex? Like you promised before. And he's like, no.
Yeah, the roles reverse. I don't think it's necessarily in this one. Oh, it is in this.
Yeah.
They're back at his room, I think. And they kiss. She calls his kiss home, which I thought was really cute because I think at some point he does the same thing later. But the roles are reversed now and she just wants sex and nothing more, but he wants more, but she still wants the whole truth.
This is probably one of the more accurate parts of this book, too, where initially as the dude, you're like, hey, we can have sex. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. And then you like catch feelings. And as a dude in your 20s, when you catch feelings, you're just like, shit, this needs to be more. And then she's like, no strings attached. And you're like, motherfucker, I've got strings.
It's shadow strings.
I'm a shadow puppet.
Oh.
Ironically, no strings on a shadow puppet. It was a terrible reference.
Chapter 13, Carr and Varish are punishing Violet by bringing her near burnout for Andarna. That's this whole chapter. That's when Varish is commanding her again and again and again, and Violet's listening. Tarin's getting pissed off. I think we get a bit of a rate of 32 strikes per hour because he notes 32, but he has her continue. My assumption is she's at 32 strikes per hour, but by the end of the chapter, it's up to about 40 times until she hits burnout.
What was her previous record? Do you remember?
I think 20 strikes an hour.
25, I think.
Yeah.
And she says something really interesting, though, as she's moving past the 25 strikes, right? She says, it's as if he was there and saw me throwing lightning during the venom attack.
Who?
Violet says that about Varish. So as far as Carr was aware, her old record was 20 or 25, right? Because Carr is who she was training with last year. Now, when she's at that 25 mark or something like that, before she hits 30, or maybe it's as she hits the 30, 32 strikes, whatever it was, she's like, he's pushing me as though he saw me throwing lightning, or how much I was able to wield.
I didn't even think about how Varish could have been there watching this whole thing happen. Because he didn't exist technically yet to us. Correct. When that happened.
Yeah. Commandant. Do.
Tarin says Silver One is done. Carr tells Varish she's done. We're done with this. He asks for another. Violet listens. And the reason I got why Violet is listening to Varish and continuing to do this is because she sees it as a way to protect Andarna. But I think Violet respects the rules and order and all of that more than I realize. And this is one of those times that shows that.
I think it's more selfish than that. I think Violet wants to show them that she isn't weak and that she is capable and she deserves Tarin. I think that's more of it for Violet, in my mind, because I don't see it as she's protecting Andarna by being able to use her power more. Carr is kind of a bit of a homie in this, not in a way that is super helpful, but in a little bit where he's like, hey, punishing her is one thing. You have the power to do that as commandant. You do not have the authority to kill her. He's like, and it won't just be me and, several other people that are upset. He's like, you'll also have to deal with Melgren
for losing this asset.
Losing these signets, because it won't just be, you'll be losing Violet, possibly Tarin and sgaeyl and Xaden. Carr brings that up.
But even Carr tries then convincing Violet after she is near death on this. And I like the way that her burnout is described as she is so fatigued and so weak, she actually can't stop it. It's not that she can't keep using it. It doesn't stop flowing
through. Control.
Yeah, it doesn't stop flowing through her. When I first read this, I thought burnout was going to be you don't get to use it again or you've hit a limit with it. No, instead you lose the ability to stop it and control that flow.
I look at it kind of as runaway current. Like, if you think of the rider is kind of like a light switch. There's electricity going to one pole on that switch all the time. The rider is who opens that switch. Think of it like a dimmer switch, I suppose, instead of a light switch. You're allowing a certain amount of current to pass through, right? So when you get too tired to control that and it's already open, you can't then shut it off or reduce it. You've lost that control. The dragon is going to supply that power constantly because that is just there through your bond.
Oh, I really like comparing it to that. I didn't think of it that way because I always wondered why tarin couldn't pull back what she's doing by reducing the power that she has. But it sounds like he can't.
Yeah, I don't think tarin has that. I think tarin is like, hey, we have a bond, therefore you have access to this power. And I think what's happening when I hear burnout is either the person's getting too tired or if the conductors, whatever you're using, are too small to handle the amperage you're supplying, you would kind of like weld, right? Those conductors in their contacts. Contacts is more of what I'm talking about. So that flow would keep going through those contacts. They would no longer be something you could move or adjust, right?
Huh. That's really cool that it follows that analogy so well.
Or I have a gross misunderstanding of how both magic and electricity work.
Well, Carr tries convincing her to convince Andarna to show up, which pisses me off because it's too late. It's not a helpful way to try to protect Violet because it seems like he's doing it as a way to protect her when really it's cowardly. Tarin cools her down. This is when Tarin takes her, flying her back to basgiath. And I think he almost like dunks her in the water as they're flying.
They don't go back to, but he's like, hey, go back to the town square or whatever, basgiath, and they'll get you taken care of, is what Carr says. And Tarin's like, yeah, okay, whatever, fuck. Get her on. He hauls her out to the lake. And he's like, cool off, bitch. And he just, bloop. In my mind, he just dropped her in the lake.
I don't think he dropped her. I think he was flying and has her in the water. Glide like above water. I think it was spraying in her face is what I thought happened.
First of all, that's so fucking funny that he's just waterboarding her to cool her down. That'd be hilarious. Oh, little low. Little low. Bond's getting weak. Bring her up. But also he flew faster than he's ever flown with her before. And a part of that was probably the wind trying to help cool her off, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And I agree. I think Carr's a chicken shit. But I think it kind of proves that Carr is not in the same league as Varish as far as, remember Carr was kind of the asshole in the other book, but Carr was also like, hey, I know you don't like me. You don't have to. You need to get this figured out.
And now Carr has someone that he is cowardly to.
Well, yeah, he's just like, motherfucker, this guy's way meaner than me, and I murdered a kid because he was an intrinsic.
I wonder if Varish has essentially dirt on them that he uses as a way to control them.
I think Varish is actually an intrinsic. I don't think anybody else knows it, but I think that is what Varish's real superpower was. I don't think he saw Violet in them and observed them. I think he knows Violet trying to keep that secret, right? I think he's aware of that. I think it's also why he pushes right to the brink of the burnout thing, and I think it can be easily covered up having the intrinsic signet by saying, I know people's weaknesses. Because, yeah, you would know their weaknesses if you could read their fucking mind. That's my guess.
I disagree with it, but...
Good.
That's all.
No, I think it's perfect. But I think it could be there. It's a possibility. And we never find out because he's dead.
Oh, he dies? I forgot that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he gets super murdered.
Oh, okay.
The most awesome way.
Okay, well, let's
But
wait.
he'll come back later, I'm sure.
They always come back, except for Liam.
Nobody stays. He's coming back. Stop it. He'll be back in the next book when he replaces Xaden as the Shadow Daddy.
Right. Anyways, Tarin cools her down. Everyone takes care of her. We're now back into sparring class. Sloane is terrible.
She's really bad.
She's awful. I feel like she's probably fighting the way that I would.
Big floppy overarm punches.
No, what? Oh. That's insulting to both me and her.
I've never seen you fight. Do you tuck your thumb into your fist?
No, but definitely would not have any skill at all. And she's going to be against someone at the next challenges or whatever, against someone she can't beat. As they're leaving sparring, a bag is thrown over Violet's head and she is knocked out.
I might add, when they were cooling her down, when she was overheating, the other dragons were helpful.
How?
The green dragon says, this is what we need to do to help cool her off, blah, blah, blah. Like, as her team of helpers, Violet's little group.
Oh, yeah, there was a moment about that.
Their dragons were also being helpful, which I really liked the idea of.
Do you think Tarin and Violet's friends of dragons are all friends? Or do you think Tarin has no friends and he's just all about sgaeyl?
So you are thinking, is Tarin Xaden is where you're going with this?
I don't know what I think. I'm just curious, does Tarin have friends?
I don't think...
Or does he just have allies?
I think Tarin must have friends because Tarin has enemies. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So do I think that they're like hanging out and chewing on some sheep together? No. I don't think he has those kind of friendships. I may be projecting a bit here too. I think he has friendships in the same way that like I have friendships. I don't have people I go see, but I have people who will call me if they need something. Or when a need arises, there are people that have my back and I have theirs. There's a mutual thing there.
Okay.
If you would call those friendships, that's what I'm choosing to call them because those are the ones that I have.
I think it's more than an ally, less than a best friend or close friends.
Less than a social friendship.
Yeah.
More of just a mutual friendliness.
Because Tarin...
Fondness. Mutual fondness.
Yeah. Because Tarin comes off as if sgaeyl is his only friend. And he's fine with it.
It's you and me. Really, truthfully. Like, you have other people, but I have you. And then I have people who I have allies with that are a little more than allies, but...
Well, Tarin should probably go hang out with some other friends.
No. I think Tarin really likes where he's at in life.
I bet so, too. Him and sgaeyl should start a podcast together.
I would suggest instead they should make a word out.
Chapter 14.
They could call it Dragon D's Nuts.
I'm not engaging in that.
Come on.
Chapter 14 is an excerpt of issues between infantry and riders and the hostility that has been there with them. So this is a long time thing, a long standing.
It's the Army and the Marine Corps.
Yeah. Just all of them with each other.
Yeah, it's all the military branches. It works that way.
So Violet finds herself in a forest. She can still talk to Tarin initially. There's pressure for her to get back to basgiath by tomorrow for sgaeyl, because she has no idea where she is. She knows what day it is, and when Xaden and sgaeyl are showing back up, they realize that the water blocks them. Now she's panicking because obviously Tarin. And the goal is to find a location using a map. There's lots of arguing on how to proceed. They have no idea where they're at, and at no point do they realize that they have two different maps.
Yeah, they're a whole group of dummies. Real self-important dummies. I think it's awesome, actually. The way that it painted this in, you have separate leadership structures that clash really heavily, and it kind of points to the necessity of there being an overarching peak of leadership. The thing about this that really kind of blew my mind was the infantry is not exposed to dragons. Outside.
None.
Which, if these are second-year infantry people, you have a year left of training before you're out there fighting griffins and all these other things, right? Assuming that's their job as well.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want them to be pretty familiar with dragons? I would want them to at least have if not a level of comfort, a level of understanding, the basics.
Yeah, the basics of don't look and don't run away.
And especially prior to your second year when you're going to stick them out there in the middle of the field. Because now you've got those that made it through the first year. And it seems as though you lose fewer infantry people through their training process than you do dragon riders the first year. One would be argued that all of the dragon deaths did not happen for the infantry people in their first year.
Yeah.
So maybe, a little hint of knowledge in lieu of the standard death college thing that we just keep going back to, where basgiath just really fucking hates kids. They want them all to die.
Yeah, you would think you would prepare them in some way, because we assume that the other quadrants aren't as ruthless as the riders one. Therefore, they want the infantry and healers and scribes to live. I understand that the scribes don't need to be familiar with the dragons, but the healers should too.
Well, and this is where I would assume some of the healers must be, because in order to have menders in the healers quadrant, they had to have been riders first, because menders is a signet given because you had a dragon.
They are not part of the healers.
Menders are not a part of the healers quadrant?
No, not really. Well,
Nolan is.
No, he wasn't. When Violet went over there, they had to call him in because he wasn't over in the healers area.
I looked at it like PA and doctors. Like, he didn't come from somewhere else. Otherwise, what's his job at the college other than to heal people? He's a mender that works at the college. He's not teaching a class.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Like, I'm just assuming. Now, Brennan was out on the front lines, which is also a weird place to put a medic. This is a military strategy. What do I know? We
don't know where he was. He was on the front lines, but maybe he wasn't supposed to be. We don't know anything about this, and I'm still upset that I want to know about Brennan and Naolin's relationship.
I agree. I want to hear about him fucking.
Oh.
You don't want to? A little shower scene for the boys?
There can be. I don't care, but I want to know more about how they got to the point that Naolin was risking his life for Brennan.
It happened in the shower. He was inspired.
Oh, my God.
Just saying. He was like, "Oh, you have a scar on your nutsack." He's like, "I can fix it." Brennan.
Stop. We're getting off track. Okay. We're talking about them having two different maps. They're not working together.
Oh, yeah, that is what we were talking about.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And they run into an orange dagger tail, which is Baide, a.k.a.
the independent variable.
Barlow's ex-dragon at this point in how Baide is described. Yeah.
I don't know if they call him ex-dragon.
My ex-bonded dragon?
Yeah. I would say Baide is still a dragon. Baide's not an ex-dragon.
Ex-bonded dragon.
No, you're right. You'd be Barlow's old dragon fling.
Violet talks to Baide. Baide does not talk back to Violet. I didn't realize how often she does just speak directly to them.
It's her thing. She's fucking fireproof.
And she just tells Baide, like, if you kill me, Tarin may not die, and if he doesn't, he is coming for you, and you will regret this. So Baide doesn't go after Violet necessarily, but Baide does go after a runner.
To be fair, they all seem to, which this is one of the moments I have a little trouble with the way the dragons are portrayed in these books.
I love this, because my next question is, are there real-life animals that react like this?
That you could talk to and reason with, and then they act all goofy? No. Yes, it's our cat. You can somewhat reason with her, and sometimes she still just throws little tantrums. And you know which one of them I'm talking about.
She's my favorite.
Yeah, and she's Baide. She's a little dummy who is moody and pissy all the time.
Well, I meant as in something runs and they attack it.
You see what I'm going to say.
I guess it is a cat. Are dragons like cats?
Yeah. Dragons are just big, scaly kitties. They're sphinx cats that just didn't stop growing. Okay, here's my issue. Dragons are personified, right?
Yep.
Anthropomorphized, whatever we want to call that. I don't think anthropomorphic is the right answer because they're not like human. But they are given the personality of people, the intelligence of people.
Yeah.
But they are not treated that way. Like Tarin, sgaeyl, we give them all of this personality. Then we get Baide, who's kind of like heartbroken, but Baide behaves like a dog.
Baide is an orange dragon. I think.
Again, it's racist. All the orange dragons are dummies. No, there must be a level of, they can't, not all orange dragons can be stupid.
I don't know.
Because also, like, Varish's dragon, seems to also have a personality. It just seems to have a shitty one.
I think it's more orange dragons are bonded to assholes.
And I think that may be possible. But what I'm pointing out is if every time a person runs from them, they're burning them up, right?
That's of all breeds. All breeds are that way.
Yeah. And that's the way we're made to believe that, right? But what is Varish's dragon's name again? Starts with an S. It's got an asshole.
It's like Sloane's name, but it's not.
Doesn't matter. When those kids run, do the other 4 dragons, the wing leaders' dragons, do they cook kids that are running?
No, because it's already been done.
No, they got all the way to the fucking parapet. Before this happened, they waited for the one orange guy to cook them.
They could have been talking to each other as they're up there. And they're like, dude, are you going to fucking do it? And he's like, yeah, I will. And you're going to wait. I'm like, okay. But hey, they're getting pretty far. And he's like, I know what I'm doing.
But you see what I mean? The chain of command is there's still rationale and reason behind it. But sometimes they're like, oh, if they sense fear in you, they'll burn you up. Like, no, dragons are not, they don't appear to operate off of pure instinct outside of those moments. They're seen to have reason and intelligence. And then they're instinctive critters. They treat them like lions. And you're like, are they or are they not intelligent creatures?
Maybe they just do it for the fun of it. There's some animals out there that just kill for fun. What one does do that?
There's people. One of them, otters. One of them, dolphins.
Dolphins is what I was thinking of.
All I'm saying is ducks. Lots of critters are rude for no reason, but they're not otherwise seen to be hyper intelligent. And I get some people are assholes, right? There are people that murder for fun. So those people are also sick. But we don't see that as an outlier in the dragon community. We see that as dragons in general are instinctively driven monsters that some of them get tame enough to deal with riders. But the ones that are tame are like, writing books. I don't know. I'm not.
So you don't like the running away and they kill because of it?
I don't like it when they treat the dragons as animals and then in other times treat the dragons as people in the way that they have reasoning and intelligence with. I don't think you get both things.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to say about it, though.
Don't look them in the eyes or they'll get you. It's like, really? Really? If you look a dragon in the eyes, they'll get you?
What if it's a cultural thing instead? In dragon culture, running away is bad form. Therefore, you get cooked.
Okay. Listen, I'm willing to accept it. What I'm pointing out is you have all these faux pas, but then the same dragon that is ruthless and instinctually driven and a huge asshat can be reasoned with when Violet's like, if you fuck with me, my dragon will murder you probably. I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
I'm going to lean into the cultural thing. It's dragon culture. And that is why the infantry needs to teach their cadets about dragon culture.
Yes, which the dragons also don't inform anybody of. You learn through death. The dragons are like, it's our secret. I don't know. It's a bugaboo. I love the book. I want to point that out. I love the book. I'm not bitching about the book. Are we good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You're allowed to have complaints. You're a fanboy.
Okay.
You've shown your dedication.
I believe I have.
Chapter 15, they obviously lost the challenge. They're still lost and wandering. The infantry are better at survival. Now the infantry are like over there cooking up like rabbit meat or something. And you have the riders that are starving and they're like, fuck. They're actually kind of good at this. We might need to tell them how great they are so we can eat. So
Violet saves the one guy. And he afterward is just like a tag along with her. He's like, my protector. I owe you a life debt. And at a certain point, Violet doesn't just turn around and go, your life isn't worth that much to me. Like, leave me the fuck alone. It would be where I would be if I was Violet.
Oh, that's so ice cold. I was going to say, why would she do that?
Oh, because what use case do you have in a survival situation of somebody that's constantly underfoot? Like, be useful to this group, not just to me.
Well, Violet isn't able to hunt or cook for herself.
Is she not? Like, they have food and things. They want the dragon riders to survive because that's also going to ensure their survival in this situation. As we learned from the one who didn't survive. Right? Like, you have some leverage here, but you could just be like, listen, I don't owe you. You don't owe me. We're square. We just both did our jobs. Your job now is to cook. My job is to make sure that that dragon didn't fucking murder you. Just doing work. Nothing personal.
All business.
That's how I really would have gone with this.
Violet's not like that.
I know.
She definitely always crosses lines with business and personal life. Because I think in the next...
his pleasure.
Because in this next part, after they get out of there, her and Rhiannon are talking. Rhiannon has hit her breaking point in this chapter. I think she has 2 moments where she snaps at Violet. She lays it all out that Violet won't talk to her about herself, about Andarna, about Xaden, about the war games, what Violet knows about what's out there, because Violet even kind of makes a bit of a comment of, it could be dragons out there. And they're like, what are you talking about? Doesn't talk to Rhiannon about the running. She doesn't talk to her about anything. And Rhiannon hits this point of, just stop lying. Just say you can't tell me, which is something that you have brought up several times throughout all of this. Violet, don't even lie. Just be honest that you can't talk about it. And that's exactly what Rhiannon wants.
Yeah, and that's how we know Violet's superpower isn't being able to tell people what they need.
Violet is such an honest person that this is new territory for her.
Rhiannon doesn't know Violet that well. Violet started keeping secrets so early on in their friendship. Like, a lot of these secrets began the year before. Violet doesn't say, hey, you know how I know who I'm going to fight? You notice I've been poisoning people? Violet has been keeping secrets the entire time from Rhi. And Violet should recognize that keeping secrets is not a problem. Lying is an issue. Rhi lays it out. And Violet was about to fucking lie again. And it's just like, no, stop.
I think she does when at some point Rhiannon asks her, like, are you okay? She's like, yeah. And Rhiannon's like, no, you fucking aren't. You're lying. Just say you're not. Well, and that you can't talk about it.
And that was... So Rhiannon made a statement. Violet went to go defend herself with that statement. And Rhi's like, stop. Do not lie to me.
Yeah.
I've had enough. She's like, you now just be honest. And if honesty is you can't tell me, that's fine. I'll be waiting to be your friend. He's like, you're not losing me. I will wait. But in order for me to wait, you have to quit lying to me.
And this all kind of validates Imogen's take where she says this is just something that writers do. We're all going to have our secrets and you just need to accept it. And Violet needs to understand that she has been doing this to Rhiannon, which should leave some leniency for Xaden doing the same thing to her.
I think it's different. I think Xaden now is handling things appropriately in his own way. Not if he wants a deeper relationship with her than co-writer. As far as just a person goes, again, I fully support the idea that there's things I'm not going to tell you. I can be honest about that, right? I think that's totally fine. I think if you then want this deep connection and love with somebody, you can't have that. You can't put up walls and expect people to love those walls. You need to give that person the opportunity to love you, not the best version of you, but to love the you that exists. I think you need that for that to be real.
I think it also shows that Xaden is growing as a character too. It's not just our main character that's growing as a person. It is everybody is changing and growing and developing all throughout this series because you don't have a 500-year-old character who has a lot of life experience in this book. You have young adults.
And even if you do have a 500-year-old character in one of these books, sometimes they still act like they're 25 years old and they match the energy of their 19-year-old counterpart in the most immature, dumbass ways possible. However, the point I want to make in this too is we need to give Imogen another high five.
She gets all the high fives. I adore
this
her.
Bit, yeah, especially.
Oh, I don't think Imogen is here yet. This is actually just between Rhiannon and Violet in chapter 15.
Right, but shortly thereafter, when they go back to the college, I guess we haven't got yet to where they've ended this adventure. Yep, you're right. We'll keep moving. Rhiannon has her honest moment with Violet. She's like, also, it's a fucking order. Go away. Well, it's like, it's my job to protect things. And she's like, I'm your fucking boss. Go.
Yeah. At some point, Violet is talking with Tarin, and Tarin shares that he could hear her, but not vice versa. So whatever this elixir thing is, it only works on the writers in suppressing their bond one way, but not Tarin hearing Violet. And later, when Violet is taken, that she already has the information that tarin can hear her even though she drank the water that suppresses tarin, and that she should be trying to think about things that tarin could hear to help her get out of that situation, and she really doesn't, like saying her location.
She does the opposite, remember? When we get back into those chapters, I'm going to give Violet some bonus points for in that, actually, because it's very intentional that she is telling tarin not to interfere with this part.
Why?
Because if tarin comes and interferes with this part, it puts Xaden and Andarna and tarin and sgaeyl at risk while she's being tortured.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait for that, because I saw this is the moment that confirms that Violet knows that when she has that elixir, she can still tell tarin where she's at.
Yep.
But this is Rhiannon's second time at the end of chapter 15. She points out it's a weird year. There's a guarded infirmary. There's assassinations, the elixir, and Violet plays it down, and that she didn't say she didn't believe Rhiannon. And Rhi says, you don't say much anyways.
Rhi says, also, quit turning away from your friends. She's like, do not fucking isolate yourself from those people. You need those people. Those people need you. Nobody does it on their own. Blah, blah, blah. And Violet's like, yeah, but Xaden said. And Rhiannon's like, I don't give a flying fuck what that idiot said. He doesn't have all the answers.
Oh, I think that's actually Imogen that you're thinking of.
That is who I was thinking of. I'm sorry, not Rhiannon.
Yeah.
You're completely right. Yep.
Because Violet's trying to follow
Xaden's
advice on all of this, and it's when she quits following his advice and doing things look more her way that it starts the rebellion and things start going into motion.
Things certainly do begin motioning.
Chapter 16, it starts with a little excerpt from Xaden to Violet in his letter. His dad wanted him to be in infantry and thought riders were pompous dicks.
He correctly assumed that. And I believe even Xaden's like, he knew that we were dickheads, self-absorbed, cocky.
Do you think that's because Xaden's dad's dad was a rider?
You're talking about his grandpa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think that is what happened. I don't think it's his mom's dad. Also because I don't think Xaden knows anything about his mom's family.
I don't think so either. But then it wouldn't explain how Fen Riorson knows that his dad was a dick and it was because he was a rider.
He, I don't think, based it entirely off of his dad. We know his dad didn't survive the Riders Quadrant. His grandpa. We'll use Xaden as the point of reference.
Yeah.
We know Xaden's grandpa did not survive the Riders Quadrant.
Yeah.
We don't know if that was due to dragons, venom, or what I would guess is it has nothing to do with griffins, given how Xaden was married off, more or less, right? Arranged marriage.
Xaden was married off?
He had an arranged marriage, basically, with the dragon rider, or griffin flyer. We can assume that one of two things killed off Xaden's grandpa. Either another rider in the Riders Quadrant, or a venom. I'm going to assume it wasn't venom, because if venom were also such a huge present danger, I highly doubt Fen Riorson would have focused his efforts on rebelling from Navarre, as opposed to finding a way to eliminate the venom from his close proximity of his people, right?
Yeah, that would make sense.
So when he says riders are arrogant, pompous dickheads, I think it comes more from a place of, they murdered my fucking dad. That's what I think happened.
That would make sense.
So, Xaden then being conscripted to go into the Riders Quadrant, bit of a kick to the nuts, could not have worked out better for him.
Yeah.
Because Xaden turned out to be like the second most powerful rider.
That's a lot to think about.
Or you don't have to.
You don't have to. You can just move on.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice thing about this book. I find the less I think about it, the more fun it is.
Chapter 16 starts with Violet going to the archives. She sees Effie and Jesinia, and she reads the record of the RCS. Violet agrees that Effie's record of events was accurate, and Jesinia's like, oh, good, because that's what we're looking for. We talked a little bit about this scene already, that Jesinia finds out that a cadet was actually killed for requesting an account of a border attack. That's what happened. It was an account of a border attack that he knew that happened. Jesinia was like, no, it didn't. We have no record of it. Therefore, you're wrong. And she eventually moves it up the chain of command, and he gets killed.
Yeah.
Jesinia was clueless. Obviously, she is really seeing the gravity of the situation that she's in. Jesinia wants to help. Violet is trusting her.
I want to address the dude who asked about that and then got killed for it is really the hero of the story.
Why?
Because otherwise, the shit that Violet's asking for would have been recorded and they would have just murdered Violet. But luckily now Jasinia's like, I better not write that shit down.
Jasinia hasn't written any of it down.
This is what I'm saying is, though, it could have if she wouldn't have seen that as Violet's asking for more and more specific things.
Oh, yeah.
It could have been, oh, no, well, Violet's asking about this. Maybe they can get me a copy of it. Writes it down, and then Violet gets hauled off. That's the end of the book.
Jasinia also didn't write down this guy's first 2 requests either, because she's like, it doesn't exist. Why bother writing it down?
Jasinia is a hero. Honestly, Jasinia is in my top 3 favorite characters.
I mean, she wrote this book for us.
4 if we include Liam. She did write the book for us. She could have done more. More Liam.
Jasinia wants to help with whatever Violet has going on, even though she knows very little to nothing. Violet asked Jasinia for a book on how the first 6 built the wards. Not a whole lot is shared. I think it just kind of ends with Violet asking, and then we're done. Then it goes back into sparring class, and being a rider is a lifelong thing. Being infantry is like a short-term thing. And do you think Xaden's dad was in the infantry?
Yeah. Yep. I think that's confirmed.
Okay. They think Nolan has someone they are torturing. I think it's been Sawyer who's been assuming this. I don't remember who.
When they see Nolan, they're like, wow, he's looking haggard.
Yeah.
And Nolan just says, it's hard trying to mend a soul.
Oh, that one's later. And this one, they're just talking about it. That essentially don't get hurt because you're not going to get any help. It's a super long queue.
That's true.
Violet poisons Sloane's opponent. Actually, the opponent's entire squad or team or whatever you want to call them, because they're all looking all kind of queasy. And she tells Rhiannon kind of what she's doing as a way to improve their relationship. This is her attempt. Like, you know what? It's been a year. I think I can share this with you. This is safe. This is something I can tell you. But she also still doesn't fully say it.
I don't understand Violet's thing with this, honestly. And also, poisoning the entire group seems unnecessary.
She didn't know which one the girl was going to eat, though.
Well, okay, that's true. Maybe we find another way to poison her as opposed to just her breakfast.
There's only so many tactics we can go with when it comes to being preemptive and helping Sloane win this fight.
Did Sloane need to win? Not everybody gets murdered the way Violet was. Everybody was attempting to murder Violet was a bad venom person.
I think they assume because Sloane was so bad at it that she is going to get killed.
She's really, really bad.
Yeah, she's terrible.
Yeah.
And she does like whatever little half cough thing to kind of blow the dust into the fight. Sloane thinks she won, and she's like, I am fucking killing it right now.
That's what Violet thought when and Violet knew that she had poisoned her opponents, and Violet's still like, I'm a real fighter. I remember picking those moments apart, like, no, you're not, shut up. And this is now we're seeing Sloane, and Violet's like, you're not a real fighter. And I'm like, Violet, don't throw stones. That was you. And I love Imogen, I think. Was it Imogen or Rhea in this one? Where I think it was Imogen who's just like, Sloane, you need to start fucking training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Imogen has been begging Sloane to train with her, and Sloane won't do it. She won't take anybody's help.
And Sloane's like, listen, Violet on a scribe's education was just fine at kicking people's ass. And
she also talked about her brother. My brother didn't do it with help. And they're like, yeah, he did. He did get help. And not only that, the girl that you hate saved his life before the second time when she couldn't do it. But Violet gets some points.
Yeah. And the part of this that gets me is she's like, Violet did just fine kicking ass on a scribe's education. You have no excuse. And you're like, no, Violet did not do just fine on a scribe's education. Violet was in the exact same position you were in, Sloane. She had to poison people to win. Like, and Violet's like, yeah, I did. Like, Violet, take a moment. Just take a breath. You are Sloane.
I don't think the way that they help Sloane is to learn about the poisons. I think it's just you don't get the advantages Violet got. You get extra training.
This is the thing. They're going to make her good at fighting.
Yeah.
Which, arguably a better path.
It is.
Right? Because now Violet's in her second year and having to learn to run. Like... And now conditioning has begun.
None of the riders, I think, run.
Well, to be fair, it's like the one thing they tell you not to do around dragons. So it kind of makes sense that their cardio is probably a little rough.
Don't even bother. If you do choose to run, you're dead anyway.
Unless you can move faster than fire, shut the fuck up. Stay put. Don't move.
What do you think about Violet's deal with Sloane over 1 week?
1 letter, 1 week, 50 weeks of training.
Yep.
You get your letters in a year, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yep. What do you think of that deal?
I think it's great.
Imogen was impressed. She's like, oh, I see why Xaden likes you.
Yeah, which, again, seemed like an odd note to me. Like, this was the moment where you're clever. I'm like, she came up with, I have 50 letters. You get a letter a week. She didn't solve an enigma. It's not a not plan. It is a plan.
I took Imogen's comment to be, I didn't know you could be that heartless or ruthless or that cold to somebody.
I also took it as I was unaware that you were capable of being this much of a dickhead.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, I'm like, this is why Xaden likes you. I'm like, I think there were other people. He didn't fall in love with Barlow, who was also a pretty proficient asshole. Like, Violet isn't the only one that schemes. As a matter of fact, the wing leader lady, all of a sudden I forgot her name from the last book that he murdered, or the dragons took care of.
Yeah, I don't remember her name.
She was clearly pretty good at scheming also.
Yeah.
Nearly got away with it.
At the end of that conversation with the new deal of, you better train, you can have a letter.
A letter a week.
Yep. Jacinia brings the classified book that Violet wants about the Six and how they put up the wards or something to it, the oldest book, I don't know, in exchange for the Fables book. Violet's getting packed up and ready to go because she's going to go see Xaden and sgaeyl. Well, she doesn't ever see sgaeyl, but Varish is at her door. They check her bag. He's an asshole, as usual. And Violet notes that Tarin thinks there's only a few more weeks until Andarna awakes.
What I want to take from this is they're using Violet as a drug mule for their cause.
Without telling her.
This is the thing.
But if they're in the saddlebags, they're right next to her. She can open them up.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that she couldn't search.
Or they're somewhere else
What
on
cracks
Tarin.
me up is that Tarin could be hauling hundreds of pounds of alloy weapons, and nobody has any idea. Tarin hasn't also brought it up to her at that point. That's to our knowledge, right? Maybe she and Tarin are aware of it. They're peddling the weapons. Like, did they search Tarin? No. Well, okay, this is just me. That would be like getting pulled over, and they have you empty your pockets but don't search your car if they're suspecting that you're packing around drugs.
Yeah, but that car can kill you. So
It could, for sure. That's a good point. I hadn't considered that, actually.
Tarin keeps secrets from Violet, and I think what's going to happen is eventually Violet will be accepting of Xaden's secrets the same way she's accepting of Tarin having secrets.
It's a different relationship. Doesn't matter.
It is.
I think eventually, yeah, she's going to accept Xaden. I don't think Xaden's going to have fucking secrets left.
He better
He
not
can't have
any.
that many left. But the next book, if we learn it all about his mom, that's got to be pretty much fucking it for Xaden's secrets.
And that type of secret seems more, it's a trauma thing. And he's not ready to talk about it. Not that he's not willing to, but...
Well, not with my theory. With my theory, his mom's venom.
So that would be useful information to probably share with your partner.
Yeah. But what do I know? I could be wrong.
Chapter 17. Dragons and humans both made sacrifices for Navarre to be a thing and to put up the wards. There was the losses of the hatching grounds. At one point, all the breeds had their own hatching grounds all across this continent, but now they're all using one hatching ground that is within Navarre and protected by the wards. And the humans, their losses were from the borders being closed.
Basically, they shrunk their country, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of the idea. They enclosed their borders to match the wards, is what we're led to believe.
Well, and some humans didn't get that benefit of being within the wards.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what the whole, what do they call it? The
premise of the book.
Yeah, I guess. The rebellion is kind of what it was called, but then the marked ones have another name for it. Doesn't matter. I think that's kind of the idea behind why that happened, right? Was the injustice of it all. Is
Yeah.
who decides which people should be protected and so on and so forth. And they left poor Meal and these other places out to rot. My question is, so the wards spread out from one point, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, it is a circular ring of protection, which we could assume is also a dome as opposed to a cylinder
Yeah.
of protection. How fucking high up in the air is it above basgiath that protection exists from the wards? And then by the time you get out to the end, is it like they're flying at super low altitude because the ward is only affecting, 35 feet in the air, the ward is no longer there. At 30 feet, you're in the wards. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and you are ridiculous. I did picture a dome and how the wards are working, but not really the science behind the curved shape on the outer edges at all.
But we would, right? Like naturally. We're like, oh.
Naturally, we would come to these conclusions.
We would. So if you had a house where hypothetically the ward is like bisected it, like, oh, my kitchen is within the wards of Navarre, but my dining room, however.
And the upstairs above the dining room also isn't.
Exactly my point. You go take a shit in safety. You take a shower at your own risk in that house, right? But the wards are extended via these alloy weapons.
That need to be imbued with power by special people. I don't know.
This is my other thing. We don't meet a person who's just consistently imbuing these. When Xaden is like, very few people know how to imbue them. Yeah, but who are they? We must be able to find these people because we know that there's this rotation. I see these 3 people, and I don't know what they do at basgiath.
Oh.
They're down there in the hole imbuing weapons on their 8-hour cycles. And you need a minimum of 3 people to do this. So you would need 5 people to do this if they worked 5 days a week in 8-hour shifts, imbuing consistently for 8 hours. I don't know.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because there's more on imbuing later where Violet gets like this little orby thing.
I was going to bring that up as her method of...
I forgot all about that thing.
Yeah, but who trains her how to use that?
I don't know.
I think it was Varish.
Oh, yeah, because I thought that she got this little orby thing when she was in basgiath.
Yeah, it's basically a crystal ball that she can throw her power into as a way to practice her concentration of movement of the power. Maybe it was Car, actually, because she's able to transfer power into it, and then eventually it's like a bomb, right? It's kind of the idea.
Huh. Yeah, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
That sounds about right.
Chapter 17, this is when Imogen actually talks to Violet like she's a friend. She's kind of been an asshole. She's like, oh, actually, I was ending this conversation. This time, she's starting the conversation on her and Xaden's relationship. Violet's taken aback. She's like, whoa, I was not prepared for this conversation, but yes, please, let's engage in this. So I see it as Violet and Imogen are becoming friends.
That's not what Imogen says.
Imogen can
says,
deny.
I'm not your friend. I'm not here to talk to you about your sex life. You have friends for that. We are mutual acquaintances with a common goal.
Imogen could say that all she wants. They're becoming friends. Only a friend would care about you and your friends, and you having a good relationship with your friend.
You're right. I'm sorry. They're slowly turning into great friends.
They are great friends.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. They're there now. They're currently
Xaden sent another letter about his childhood. And I was feeling really good at the end of these chapters. And before we started talking today, I was like, this is so cute. Like, Xaden, you're redeeming yourself. You are sharing information weekly with Violet, opening about your childhood, sharing this without being asked. And I was feeling so good about this. And then you brought up Cat. So, Xaden, you got to work on this again in these next set of chapters.
I would say Xaden is moving in the right direction.
He is. Imogen thinks that Violet should forgive Xaden and accept his secrets, and it's normal for writers to have these secrets, especially for writers. And we've talked about this several times throughout this.
Yeah.
Imogen lays it out even more that Violet needs to be there for Rhiannon, and that there are bigger things to worry about than whatever the hell her and Xaden have going on. It seems almost like Imogen is what I want to be telling Violet right now. Violet, get over this. You need to work through this some way, but there are bigger things to worry about, and Rhiannon is struggling. You guys are losing your friendship, and you need to work this out. And that's when, in chapter 17, we learn about the letter that Rhiannon got from her family to be aware of strangers seeking shelter. Your kindness could kill.
Yup.
No takes?
Well, we know what that one's about.
Yeah, it had. No, I actually don't know what it's about. What is it about? strangers seeking shelter and that it could kill. Who are these strangers that would be seeking shelter? Is it just people outside of Navarre trying to get within the wards? Why would that be a problem?
Yeah, spies. Whether they be Venin or if you want to view them as Pormish citizens, whatever the fuck that is. Either one would be an issue. Also, general rule, stranger danger. I think they could have summed it up a little less, but you're going to send the letter, you might as well put some extra words in it.
Unknowingly, I think Violet validates what Markham said. If you were one of the riders that out in the forest heard Violet make a comment about, well, we don't know what's out there, it could be dragons. She mentioned something about dragons attacking when she was in that forest.
They said, we know what's out there. And she said, no, you don't.
It could be dragons. She said something like that.
They said, what are you referring to? And she's like, it could be dragons.
Yeah, right?
It wasn't it could be dragons.
Right. So she says.
Panicked response.
It was a panicked response, but she does say that. She didn't say venom and she didn't say flyers, right? In this bit, when Markham is talking, he also implies that they're dragons.
Right. And the use case of implying dragons in lieu of it being griffins is griffins are not actually a huge threat.
No.
And I think the more these people learn about dragons and about combat and all of the things they're training for, the less convinced you could possibly be that the danger was griffin flyers.
Yeah. Well, Markham takes the letter, he reads it out loud, says it's not official and that it's a regional thing, calls it propaganda, and that's when I thought that Violet unintentionally kind of also said the same thing that he's saying, that the regional leadership think that the destruction is from dragons. And this whole time, the way he's wording it is, and you would obviously assume XYZ, telling the cadets how they need to think this through and giving them the answers.
Which is also a great indication that you're also being fed propaganda. Anytime somebody is telling you what to think in lieu of just giving you information, it is propaganda.
Yep. Violet runs out. She's pissed off. She releases her power. This is her second time doing this. So I think it's more of a moment of checking in with her emotional state, and when we compare likely the last book, she will not be having these moments anymore because we're going to see growth, is how I took this scene of her reaction. Rhiannon follows. She's like, how are you doing? She's like, I'm fine. Rhiannon's like,
bitch,
you're not.
We know better. You just sparked up, homie.
Yeah.
It's obvious.
And even Violet saying, yeah, I'm fine, that didn't piss me off because that seems pretty normal. When you're upset, you still say fine because you're not ready to talk about it. Rhiannon's like, no, you're not. But then Violet asked Rhiannon to go to class and take notes for her because Violet wasn't going. And I found it, her audacity to ask that of Rhi, to be too much.
Yeah, and I would add the term I'm fine is still an issue. You're not fine. Just because people say it and it's common does not mean that's the appropriate response. The appropriate response is, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Not, I'm fine. And it's not that it's unheard of and, horrible thing Violet did. It's more like the first step in learning to be honest is just be straightforward. I don't want to talk about it. Can you please take notes for me? I don't want to be there right now.
That's actually exactly what Rhiannon asked of her in the last several chapters was, you don't have to lie, just tell me you can't talk about it. And she still didn't do it in the scene. So she runs to the archives. And I like that Tarin calls her out for losing her control and that she's in the archives because it's her attempt at trying to gain control. This is her safe place. Violet's like, that's a good point, but I'm not going to tell him that. He's like, well, I heard.
Yeah, too bad it's in your brain.
You don't have your shields up. You should probably work on that.
Yeah, and she is not applying the effort to that. Xaden points it out. Tarin points it out. Everybody's like, no. Those need to be up all the fucking time.
Especially when you know that there are other secret signets out there. Not just the one that you know about and you know he's not touching you, but there's other secret signets that you should be having these shields up for.
Yeah, at this point, she doesn't know Varish's signet.
Yeah.
Like, be a little cautious of the guy that is so good at interrogating and murdering the people whom the country deems it's okay for him to do that with. Maybe be cautious. I think she's doing good for a person that's flung into the world that she is.
Yeah, and I think she's really trying to find ways to be useful, and she finds currently looking into the wards to be a better use of her time than likely shielding, even though it's clear both should be done at the same time, but it's impossible to be everywhere at once.
I agree. I think the part of this that gets to me probably more than anything is Violet is so smart so often and then so dumb the rest of the time. Violet is either the smartest character ever or the most understandable dummy. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't, because I don't see her that way.
I see the way that she is unable to squeak out honesty with Rhiannon as so dumb. Because it doesn't take a lot of extra thought to just go, what did this person ask of me the last time we spoke? And if she hadn't brought it up to her, it would make some sense to me that Violet would just absentmindedly be like, I'm fine. But then to immediately go, also, I'm not fine enough to go to class and take these notes. I need you to do that for me. And also, you just let lightning strike. So it's pretty obvious you're not fine, right? Like,
this is all new territory for Violet. This is a part of her that she has never, ever needed to be before. That's how I took it. I didn't see it as dumb. I took it as inexperienced.
Yeah, but you don't need hordes of practice at some of these things. Recognizing that you are about to go do something hyper-aggressive. Because she is conscious enough to know that while she's going to do this, Jacinia is conscious enough that what Violet is doing is dumb. When Violet shows up, when Jacinia, who is not exactly a spy master, is like, why the fuck are you here? What are you doing? I said I would come to you, blah, blah, blah. You can't be here these days. This is obvious that you are doing something you're not supposed to be doing.
But Violet's not in a state of mind where she can recognize that. And that's where it goes back to, I think this is laying down the groundwork of seeing her growth, because when she's in these same situations again, she'll have more control, I think, in the future books.
I don't disagree with the fact that there's room for growth and that she will experience that growth. What I'm saying is we have moments where she is all of a sudden, okay, when the Venom do show up, she takes 30 seconds to all of a sudden be in that moment and present in the ways that she needs to be effective, right? You would argue that is perhaps a much bigger adjustment than what she just dealt with, or no?
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. I think the answer is probably in between, that I am too lenient on this.
And I am too harsh.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
I have no qualms with that. And
But
I do still like Violet. I want to point that out. I do very much like Violet.
I adore Violet.
Yeah.
I am definitely more Team Violet, and shockingly, because I thought it was going to be all about Xaden, like, Violet, get over this, you guys are fighting, and I'm like, I kind of get it. I would be picking at this also.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think Violet's juggling a lot with Sloane and Rhi and Xaden and everything else she has going on. Her mom.
And she doesn't have Andarna through any of this.
I think that's another thing that really points out to the importance of Andarna and Andarna's relationship with Violet. I think there's some grounding there that Andarna provides her some perspective sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is an important thing. This is my baby.
Yeah. Well, end of chapter 17 is Violet returning the book when she wasn't supposed to, but it also makes sense that she's like, I need this sooner. We need to be going through books faster than weekly. Kind of reminds me of somebody here. Chapter 18, it starts with a little excerpt about the borders of Navarre are determined by the limits of the ward. We kind of talked about that earlier with the dome shape versus cone shape of how the wards must work. Xaden shows up exhausted and tired, and she says, I want you, not I love you, because he wants these 3 little words. But he's never said I love you to her.
He did when she was, like, on drugs or poisoned.
Did he say it out loud?
I don't know. I thought he did.
I don't know if he said it out loud. Because at the end of this, she points out that he hasn't said it out loud.
Okay, well then that would definitively tell him that's wrong.
Why do you think he's so exhausted? What's going on?
How far is the flight?
Yeah, I guess if he was up all day and then he's like, now we must fly.
And had to get the pass, so he had to fight club his way through it, and he was probably showering with that guy.
Oh.
I think there could be a lot of things. And to be honest, I think him also preparing probably however they're managing to thieve the weapons. We don't really get into that.
No, we don't.
And I think it's because Violet's not allowed to know that because
Yeah.
they're not giving Violet any more details on what she's required to have.
Yeah, that's true.
But maybe that has something to do with it as well.
Well, he has secrets still. That makes sense. She's aware that she's not supposed to know that stuff, at least. They talk about the books that she has in there and her plan with the ward. And Xaden is upset that she is keeping secrets from him, especially on this one. And I just found it ironic and annoying.
It is ironic and annoying. I also think we got to give Xaden some points for recognizing which books were hers and which ones weren't.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Because she's like, oh, I didn't get a chance to put away the book. She's like, it's fine. I always have books. He won't think anything of it. And he immediately goes, that one is yours. That one's not your book. Where did that one come from? And she's like, oh, just the archives. And he's like, they're going to fucking catch you.
Yeah.
And she's like, I have friends. Don't fucking worry about it. She's like, I can trust her.
He's like, you trusted Dane. And he keeps throwing this in her face every time that she tries trusting. So when he throws it in her face, he's like, yeah, but you trusted Dane one time.
Yeah, and the funniest part to me is trusting Dane was a bit of a, oh no, trusting Xaden was a much bigger issue. She is a horrible judge of character.
I think nobody is trustworthy other than Jacinia, and so far Rhiannon, but I'm still a little suspicious of Rhiannon in the future because of this turmoil going on with Rhiannon and Violet. But Jacinia, she seems pretty solid in her trustworthiness.
So far, we trust Jacinia also because she's the one that wrote the books.
There might be some influence.
And there might be. She's like, actually, there was this one beautiful scribe who actually saved the whole kingdom, and these writers helped. I would love if that's the last book.
Because I think even when Nolan shows up and they're talking to him, he's on edge and cautious, and Nolan points it out. He's like, I would never hurt Violet. Why are you acting like this? And again, it's just like, I don't know. Violet trusted Dane.
Again, and also you, Xaden. Like, why? Violet, whoever she trusts in general, you shouldn't trust. She also trusted Nolan, and that bites her in the ass later.
It does, but in a really sad way because this scene makes it more heartbreaking. But right before they see Nolan, they are fighting in their heads, just staring at each other, doing the facial expressions. And I like to think the hand movements and actions of everything that they're saying. And then everyone around them is just like staring like, what is going on? And I think Rihanna's like, they just do this sometimes.
Yeah, and nobody assumes it's like a mental connection.
I think they do, because I asked you this once before. Do you think the other writers know that because of Tarin and sgaeyl's bond, that Xaden and Violet have a mental bond?
I mean, like, some of them must be aware. And if not, there's been enough hints. They should have picked up on it.
This one was the most obvious, where they're like, yeah, sometimes they just do that.
But it also leads to why leadership would not trust them.
I think Imogen says this. I don't know when she says this. She's like, yeah, the first thing I would do is separate you guys.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, duh, fucking idiots. Like, you guys couldn't keep this one thing under wraps. Just have your conversations out loud when you're around other people.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, they have that argument. Everyone's watching. There's more arguing as they go and visit Jacinia, and they run into Nolan. Nolan says he would never hurt Violet. But I think later he's fine with others hurting her because he keeps mending her. And he then says in this moment, it's really difficult mending a soul.
Yeah, because they're like, why do you look so fucking haggard?
I think him being this haggard, mending one soul, Barlow, is signs that they aren't mending other cadets that are almost dying.
So I don't take it that way. I don't take it as it's only one soul. He mentions one soul for why he looks haggard right now, right? But he could be mending several souls, and it's just the work of mending a soul itself is very taxing. So he's not going to be able to do it over and over and over and over.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know.
I still think your theory of that one cadet being taken away to be used as a test subject to control Venom, that's a possibility because he's not dead.
Or he could be. We don't know. He could be dead.
He could be dead. His name was Red.
Yeah.
I don't actually think Xaden can read her mind as directly as we have thought in the past. there have been obvious signs where it sounds pretty direct sentences, like the last several, but he asks her frequently, what exactly are you thinking? I need you to say it out loud or say it to me. And I think it's because he can't read her thoughts directly like we thought.
I think it's because she's developed her shielding enough that he can't get an exact thought out of her.
Maybe.
Because even if he was just reading her intentions, he could infer whatever thought he had. The words itself wouldn't be that important. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If her intention was golden, why would you care about what her words were? We use words to convey intention, not the other way around.
Maybe. Well, chapter 18 ends with Xaden can sign. That was shocking. I forgot about that. And Jacinia points out the issues with the archives.
Violet also can speak Tirish.
Yeah.
Also an important detail.
Yeah, she knows many languages.
Yeah, but Tirish is a more shocking one than him signing in the common language.
Yeah, and he even kind of calls that out.
Yeah, which I think was a really great note there.
Yeah.
She's like, you can sign, and he's like, you can fucking speak Tirish, homie. Don't you dare think that what I'm doing is weird. Moving on, sorry.
No, it's good. Violet gets another book, and her and Xaden continue arguing at the end of chapter 18.
Yeah, which is the way this book goes. This book moves slower than I remember it the first time.
It does, and there was a lot more arguing than I remember. I think I probably just blocked a lot of it out. I do feel like the arguing is a little more valid than what I felt the first time.
I think going through this slower helps validate that.
Yeah, you can really sit with what Violet is feeling towards him and why she's having that battle.
I agree. And I think when we went through it the first time, it was so fast that it seemed like a lot of tiny arguments about big things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Continuous arguments that just kind of went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. When you do it slower, it's the argument happens, and while we're sitting with it, it feels like the character is.
Yeah, because a lot of time is passing by.
Yeah, it's a week between when they see each other.
Yeah, compared to literally 20 hours.
Yeah, so the way that we're going through this, so for these chapters, we experienced these chapters twice as fast as the characters experienced them.
Yeah.
But when we first went through this, we experienced, almost a year's worth of time in 20 hours. So for us, we're like, these motherfuckers are fighting every 10 minutes. No, they are having a long, drawn-out issue.
It's going on for months, I think. Yeah. Maybe not even months, but over the course of several weeks, many weeks.
So when you get those reprieves, it's not unnatural when you take it slower. So I would argue that there's a benefit to reading this one slower.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that for a relationship that is valued really heavily by each of them, right? The effort being put in to reach compromise isn't being made by either of them.
Yeah, because each of them are kind of digging their heels in of this is what I'm willing to accept.
Yeah, it seems to be two people that are very used to getting their way.
Now I'm going to try to pay attention to that. If when they do come to their resolution, is it because they compromised or one gave in or how it really got resolved?
It's like that other book. Remember, your mom had me read a book one time called Never Split the Difference. And it's a hostage negotiator that talks about how the correct answer is never compromise, blah, 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 which don't read that book and think you're getting a relationship lesson.
Is it a relationship book?
No.
Okay.
It ties in with that, but it's all about more or less, it has to do with how to get what you want. Because, right, the guy, hostage negotiator, you want the hostage. That's the idea. And the way that you would tie this back in with relationships and kind of the parallels he draws is compromise is wearing one black shoe and one brown shoe. He's like, in the end, neither of you would get what you want if you compromise.
Which is really close-minded because compromise could be brown shoes one day, black shoes the next day.
Compromise, to me, could be understanding why you would like me to wear brown shoes and I would like to wear the black shoes. And if we both reach a point of understanding, one of those things can be more important than the other.
Okay, yeah. So if Violet comes to terms with why Xaden needs to keep these secrets, that could be a form of compromise.
Yeah, if it's a moment where they've reached a mutual acceptance of this is appropriate for our relationship and it won't hinder the trust we feel in each other, then you've reached that compromise. Or if Xaden comes to a point where he says, there isn't any difference in me knowing this and you knowing this because you are a part of me, that's also a compromise. And it doesn't take something away from either of them to reach that. Versus if he just gives in without reaching a point of understanding where his mindset has changed, or if she does, then they've given something up and they're a black shoe and a brown shoe. Anyway, never read the book, Never Split the Difference by something Swan?
Yeah.
Is his name?
Yeah, I remember that book now.
But yeah, it's a good book if you want to learn hostage negotiation, I suppose. It's really a bad book if you want to try to apply that to other things in life. It's a terrible negotiation book by a very successful negotiator.
Well, those were all the notes that I had.
I have one other note, and that's, so Liam's coming back in the next few chapters.
Yeah, exactly.
He
Oh,
is.
wait. Oh, I was just...
Yeah, and I know you were ready to shoot me down because of my absurdities.
Yeah, that's right, he does.
Do you think, just from what you remember of the first time going through this book, that it is Violet projecting what she believes Liam would say and do? Or do you think that this is some mental gift given to her, or she's experiencing a Liam?
I think from my first time listening through, I thought it was just her having a psychotic break, and it was trying to show her coping mechanisms throughout this torture.
Okay.
That it wasn't her gifts or her powers. It's just something people do when they have hit limits.
It's a fantasy book. Could there be ghosts?
Yeah, I think he was a ghost. A ghost that only she saw.
Well, that's, apparitions be apparitioning, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what my opinion is of it the second time going through.
I remember listening to it the first time and thinking, wow, this is such a powerful portion of this book. And also, I felt like it went on too long, even when we were listening to it as just a burn through the book fast as we could go. Because it was, it's necessary for it to be that long, but it was well enough done that I was uncomfortable. I'm not going to say it was good because I don't like it. It's necessary, but I don't like it.
Because part of the reason that our favorite movie is...
Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah, thank you. Is Jojo Rabbit is because it is so well done. It makes you feel all of the feelings, even ones you don't want to feel, which makes it such a great movie that it can elicit these emotions.
Yeah, it's so necessary, and I'm so excited to get to that part of it, but I hate that it's there.
I think it's kind of Fourth Wing's version of Violet having an experience that no one will ever comprehend and is just for her only. Like in Fourth Wing, that big fight that they had, there are other people that are aware of it, but she had to keep it to herself when she came back. And now this is a situation that is hers and hers alone that no one will comprehend.
I would say for me, how I took it was, it both shows the growth and the consistency of Violet. The first thing Violet says when she's going across the parapet is, I'm not going to die today.
Yeah.
And she does continually say that through all of her struggles and this and that. In a lot of those struggles, she would not have overcome without help. And in this one, she overcomes this struggle with her version of Liam, right? Arguably, her mental breakdown.
Yeah.
But her subconscious is what saves her in this. And she is so powerful mentally in a way that you as a reader can appreciate because it isn't magic.
Oh,
it gets her through it.
Just the way that you worded that, I remembered when we first read it, it was this moment that I thought truly validated why Tarin picked her. Not that she could handle a torture situation, but show how great her mind is that she could handle the amount of power that Tarin was giving her.
Oh, I think more so also Fourth Wing Violet couldn't have done it. It shows the growth.
Yeah, I would agree.
Violet is becoming, it's kind of like, so Tarin's like, I know exactly who and what you are. The what in that still points to something to do with her hair being funky, and she's got some sort of super secret hidden squirrel thing going on.
Or her dad was at the hatching grounds talking with tarin at some point and Andarna overheard.
Yeah, but the what still gets me a little bit with it.
It does.
But this is where, rather than what you are, I think it makes me think of more of who she will be. The strength Violet has, again, mental resilience is so good. And I think that if you looked at this book as, if the things I enjoyed about Fourth Wing are different than the things I enjoy about this book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I also think that seeing how resilient her mind is and tarin choosing her, again, points to Naolan isn't dead. Because the level of power, or I don't know what word to use, that Naolan needed to be for tarin, I don't think he died.
I don't think he died, and I think it's why he chose Violet, because of the mental strength she was capable of having that Naolan didn't have.
Oh, that's a much better take.
Why I think Naolan turned Venin, saving Brennan, and tarin's like, fuck this. Humans aren't worth. Almost broke him because he wasn't enough for Naolan, is the way he took it. And then later on, he's like, I need somebody that won't ever break, that can bend when they need to, but will never be broken. And I think that that's Violet.
I really like that take.
Yeah, we'll talk about this when it actually happens.
Yeah, we keep getting ahead of ourselves.
We do, but I'm so excited.
It'll be good. I love you.
I love you.
You are my bestie.
You're my bestie. It was a great time. We had fun. Now get out and go live your life.
No, wait. No. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate and love you all. Please follow us here, TikTok or Instagram at Shadow Daddies Podcast.
And then go live your life.
Bye.
Bye. Get out. We're done. This was Daggers and Shadow Daddies. Now it's my time. Toodaloo. It was fun for us. I hope it was fun for you. But that's all we've got. Goodbye. Come back in a few days. We love you.